Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. It is race week once again, and after an action-packed Dutch Grand Prix, Toto Wolff has revealed the win for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes was tight, but it was on before the virtual safety car came out, and has definitely raised some suspicions about the actions of AlphaTauri with these whole shenanigans. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Loads of new subs yesterday. Of course, we go back to Monza this week, the home of Ferrari. Will they perform well? We'll talk about that later today because their pace have fallen off a cliff lately, it seems. Firstly, just to note, we believe Gasly to Alpine is the plan, with Colton Herta, current IndyCar driver, replacing Gasly at AlphaTauri. Now, apparently, they only want to let Gasly go to Alpine if they can get Colton Herta, which requires the super license thing that we talked about. I'm not sure about the details on how you need to get it and all the complications of the legal stuff. Just, I think I've heard that other drivers in a similar situation would have a really hard time getting one. Maybe Red Bull can find the legal exemption or whatever they need, but if the FA doesn't grant the super license, then probably they force Gasly to stay because he has got a contract there, and then of course Alpine would be in a bit of a predicament because they want Gasly, it seems. So I'd imagine this probably will happen, but maybe 60-65% chance that's going to be the lineup for next year. But Herta has been a driver linked recently to even McLaren at times, so yes, him and an AlphaTauri would be interesting to see next season. Just to mention this, because of course one of the big talking points out of many was the strategy of Mercedes at the end of the race. Should they have pitted Hamilton? Should they have, pitted both of the cars? Should they have left Russell out on the mediums to defend against Verstappen on the softs? These were all questions that, could have been raised and were raised, of course, understandably so. And actually, Christian Horner believes that maybe what Mercedes should have done is kept Russell out on the mediums to try and protect Hamilton. Now, of course, the downside of that is that if Verstappen got them anywhere, as he probably would have done, all things considered, then now both of your drivers are now vulnerable to Leclerc further behind. But still there was a world in which this was the better decision that Mercedes could have made. Horner reckons maybe that's what they would have done, right? I mean, look, the Red Bull pit crew is so good and they always make the right decision. It's actually absurd how consistent they are. Of course, Ferrari are questionable, even Mercedes at times are questionable. Red Bull always seem to get it right. They take the risk when it's necessary, and they probably would have won yesterday's race anyway, even without the virtual safety car and the safety car at the end. But Toto Wolff believes the win for Mercedes was on, even though it might not be incredibly likely. We'll see that here in a second. Horner says, yes, surprised Mercedes let Lewis Hamilton be exposed at the end of the race because the decision they made to leave Hamilton out on mediums, even if he made a mistake on the restart, and I think people said he didn't have his power mode correct or something, so he got passed into the first corner, it wouldn't really have mattered, right? It was only delaying the inevitable. Verstappen was going to get him, so I think that was kind of suicide for Mercedes to leave him out there. I guess they felt like they didn't want to, they wanted to give him a chance of winning, but Hamilton knew before the restart, right? He's got experience in these type of situations before, the race was over and done with before that time. So definitely I think some mistakes from the Mercedes side, and maybe they missed their opportunity to really go for the win. But I think generally what kind of cost them the chance to go for the win was probably that first virtual safety car. Hamilton and Mercedes still taking the positives they can. The big positive really being that right now, at least the last couple of races, yes, in Spa both of the Red Bulls were dominant, but Perez on a normal track, or at least on a normal setting, is nowhere near Verstappen right now. Probably the car has been developed away from him to some extent. Verstappen's killing it, but both Ferraris, right, have been really nowhere the last couple of races, right? Even Russell was faster than both Ferraris for the majority of that race back at Spa. So that's definitely a positive they can take, that really on a track that suits Mercedes, the only challenger they seem to have right now is probably Max Verstappen. So there are, of course, some positives to take for Mercedes, but they are wondering and are kind of frustrated about what happened with this virtual safety car. So this is kind of what was discussed after the race, at the race plan, the simulations, the AI, or whatever they use to decide what's going to happen in the race. The race planner said the win was on, tight but on, he says. So what he says in the article here, as he describes after the race, is that effectively the way it was going was Hamilton, or Verstappen was leading. He would have had to pit for a new set of tyres with about 20 laps to go. Then Hamilton would have been leading, with Russell about 3 or so seconds behind. He believes that when Max pitted within a few laps of when the VSC did come out, then he would have been about 8 seconds behind after that pit stop, with about 20 laps to go. He reckons that with the new tyres that Max would have had on, he would have caught up to Russell with about 6 laps to the ends, and then of course it's a shootout for the last 6 laps. Now look, whether Mercedes, if they got smart there, could have maybe allowed Russell to get into the DRS zone of Hamilton, and then both of them try and defend against Max on new tyres, seems still likely, given the fact that the Mercedes would have been on 40 lap old hards at that point, and Verstappen would have been on relatively fresh mediums or softs. Verstappen probably still would have won, but Wolff reckons that the win was on and Verstappen would have had to overtake both Mercedes on track with just 6 laps to go to the ends if you wanted to win the race. So he reckons, like, look, without the safety car, that was probably what would have happened. There was maybe a 25% chance that the Mercedes managed to hold him off, but that was their best chance of going for the victory. Of course, as it turned out, the safety car, the virtual safety car, comes out at the ideal time for the Red Bull pit crew. They can just pit Verstappen then and there. They come out then ahead of the Mercedes, getting the free pit stop, and would have held that lead to the end, it seems. Of course, the safety car mixed things up again towards the end. But again, Wolff is kind of looking at this thinking, well, hang on a second, it's a little bit bizarre and a little bit kind of too convenient for Red Bull that this came out at exactly the time it did, just when Red Bull and Max Verstappen needed the safety car to come through. It comes from Yuki Tsunoda, of course, for AlphaTauri, Red Bull's sister team. So it all kind of works in a way that it kind of amplifies the questions around this. And Toto Wolff is not exactly denying that there might be something to look at here. I don't think he really believes that there's really anything going on. To be honest, I just think this is one of those weird, like, motorsport incidents that happens. I imagine what happened here is that Yuki Tsunoda, he thought that, like, his wheel was loose, and that's what he told the team. The team said, no, it's fine, get going again, and I guess we'll just put the wheels on again. So he came back into the pits, they changed his tyres again, and then they were like, yeah, okay, we've put your seatbelt back on, basically is what they were doing there, and then let him go, thinking, I guess, that it was the tyres that were the issue. And then as he drives away, he's like, no, this car isn't right, there's something broken. And then they're like, oh, okay, you were right about a problem, but it wasn't the wheels or wasn't the tyres or whatever. So that's what I guess was happening here. But it was just really strange the way this actually happened. That, like, at that point, Tsunoda's race was ruined, right? He stopped on track, came into the pits, his race was ruined. Like, I don't really see why they needed to send him out again, given his race was completely over and he was saying there was something wrong with his car still, right? And of course the wheels weren't, like, not put on properly, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to get round again. So just some strange decisions, right? And Toto Wolff is like, look, I don't really care too much now because we weren't really in the fight for a championship. And as he says, look, the word maybe or not, it's irrelevant for me. I'm not thinking about it anyway. But he says, look, if we were to be fighting for a championship here, that would be something that I would look at, right? Saying that, well, I'm going to second here. It's a little bit too convenient for Red Bull that their sister team has this bizarre circumstance where Tsunoda gets a problem, comes back into the pits, probably should just retire the car then and there, and then they let him go out again and then cause a virtual safety car on track right in the very few lap window where Max Verstappen needs to pit to get the advantage to go on and win his home Grand Prix. Of course, look, Red Bull don't need that advantage. Verstappen probably would have won the race regardless, as we just looked at, and also they're leading the championship massively. Like, I kind of doubt there's any manipulation going on here. But this, to some degree, is the issue with the events of Abu Dhabi, that every time something like this happens, like, people are going to start tweeting out hashtag F, or, well, what do they tweet out? Hashtag fix, but with the I being a 1 or whatever, right? Just because of the events of Abu Dhabi, people, like, every time something like this happens, it already is super under the microscope, right? And maybe understandably, because, like, there's been some questionable events, let's say, because there's been some questionable events, let's say, in the last 12 months in Formula 1. Now, look, this, I don't think there's really anything to look at, but as Wolff says, look, I think it needs to be investigated for the safety of the drivers and everyone out there. The driver stopped, unbuckled, did a full lap and came in. Then he put the seatbelt back on and went out again. Like, that's just super strange, he says. And he says that, look, if we were fighting for a championship here, he'd be wanting it looked at. As it stands, it's like, whatever, right? But I mean, yeah, just the fact that he stopped, comes in, they put his seatbelt back on, he comes out, stops again at the same corner. It's like, just such a bizarre turn of events. And I mean, yeah, Toto Wolff, of course, was understandably kind of speechless about this, because it was interesting. He stopped, and I thought they were going to immediately call the VSC. They didn't. He comes into the pits and goes out again and gets another, like, the actual VSC gets deployed that time. So just a remarkable, one of these things that happens in motorsport, I think. I don't really think is, the thing is, like, AlphaTauri as well, they wouldn't do this anyway, just because Tsunoda, I think, was their best chance of getting points. So, like, it's incredibly, like, there's no way they would have just sacrificed Tsunoda's race for, in a situation where Red Bull are going to win anyway. So I don't really buy into any of it. But, Toto Wolff is at least opening the door to the possibility that there might be something going on here. Now, I think for some reason, people were really coming at, like, Hannah Schmitz, the Red Bull head of strategy, and I really have no idea why. Like, she is an absolute, like, she's a baller. She's, like, obviously fantastic in that role, and I guess people were, like, throwing insults and abuse her way, thinking that she had, like, manipulated this race or something. Like, and AlphaTauri actually come up with the responses. I have no idea. Like, these people just got to get a grip with themselves, honestly. But as they say, such hateful behavior is not tolerated. These accusations of foul play are unacceptable, untrue, and completely disrespectful towards both Hannah and us. So they're denying it, obviously, as they will, and I think understandably so, because I don't think there was anything dodgy going on here. But as I say, just the way that Formula 1 has transpired the last few months opens the door, and even Toto Wolff hasn't exactly entirely denied that there might be something going on here, although I highly doubt it, given the circumstances. I think it's just one of those things. Maybe you guys disagree, and the thing is, Yuki Tsunoda, after kind of unbuckling his seatbelt and then still driving the lap, actually got a reprimand, and apparently apparently is now going to face a 10-place grid penalty at the next race in Monza, because he's now like exceeded the reprimand limit or whatever, driving reprimands, non-driving reprimands, whatever. He's now apparently going to have a 10-place penalty at Monza. So like yeah, they should have just told him to get out of the car in the first place. An absolute disaster class, to be honest. It turns out actually that it was a problem with the differential, and that was the other thing that I must say that was kind of strange about this, that I'm sure you guys have probably already commented on by this point in the video. But like when they were asked about what the issue was, they didn't really seem to know. And like I know that Ted Kravitz on air was kind of saying it seems a bit fishy, in the sense I think that like maybe the team wanted to cover up the real issue by taking this time, buckling the seatbelt, letting him go out again. Like that was a bit strange, right? That Tsunoda couldn't really explain. He didn't really know what the issue was. The team didn't really know what the issue was. Turned out apparently it was an issue with the differential, which is I imagine a very rare problem to have, which of course can happen. But yeah, I don't know. The explanations weren't particularly cohesive, which I think adds more fuel to the fire, even though I think just, you know, looking at the implications here for both sides, I kind of doubt that there was anything really going on. But like, that's where we're going to leave it for today. Crazy scenes. At the end of the day, Hamilton gets P4, Russell gets P2, and you know, maybe they could have won. They probably would have lost anyway based on the simulations that Toto Wolff showed, but maybe it could have been possible if they had magically some more pace in those older hard tyres than might have been expected. And of course, Monza might not be so good for the Mercedes with the straight line speed deficit that they have, but maybe if Hamilton's engine can get fixed and everything, then they could at least be competitive with the Ferraris yet again. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I will see you next time.